Lucifer, Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? The word Lucifer is found only once in the scriptures, as quoted from Isaiah 14:12. The Hebrew definition means the shining one. The planet Venus is often referred to as the morning star, a popular belief that is held by false religious indoctrination is that this is a reference to the devil, or to Satan. Over many centuries, people have been taught that this devil, or Satan, is a mysterious, fantastic, powerful created being that was once an angel in heaven, the home and abode of Yah, the Almighty Creator, but that this being was cast out because there was a rebellion against Yah. Why such a belief should be held is very difficult to understand, as will be seen from the clear truth of the following verses. King James Version. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. Isaiah 14:12-13. The Scriptures version. Note, words in brackets, or underlined or added to clarify the passage. How you have fallen from the heavens, O Heliel, the shining one, son of the morning, you have been cut down to the ground, you who have laid low the nations. For you have said, in your heart, let me go up to the heavens, let me rise my throne above the stars of El, and let me sit in the mount of meeting on the sides of the north. Isaiah 14:12-13. As Lucifer the devil or Satan. If the popular view that Lucifer is the devil or Satan is correct and was cast out of heaven, then these two verses contradict each other, for why would Lucifer want to ascend into heaven? How could he exalt his throne above the stars of Yahweh? Seeing that a rebel in heaven is impossible. Hab 1:13. Yah is supreme and always has been. Again, how could Lucifer weaken the nations and be cut down to the ground? Would he not have much less power over anyone after being cut down to the ground? Why would he want to sit upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north? What are the sides of the north? What is meant by the sides of the north? The answer is to found in Psalm 48:2, beautiful for situation. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. So Lucifer desired to have control of Jerusalem. Mount Zion is a reference to the civil authority of Jerusalem. Then in verse 15 he was told he would be brought down to hell, the grave, to the sides of the pit. He would be buried, so that he would not continue to be troubling the nations. Verse 16 goes on to say, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? So Lucifer was a man. Verses 18-20 tell of his end and compares it with the other kings of the nations who were laid down in the grave in glory. Then, still dealing with this so-called devil, imagined to be Lucifer, verse 21 says, prepare slaughter for his children. We know of course that celestial messengers, angels, do not have offspring. The simple truth of the matter. This whole record is concerned with the king of Babylon. For I will rise up against them, saith Yah Elohim of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, and remnant, and son, and nephew, saith Yah. So Lucifer's people, son and nephew, their name and remnant, were to be cut off. If Lucifer's children would be slain, he would also no longer be involved. This miserable end mentioned in verse 20 could not be applied to the devil, who is supposed to be an all-powerful spirit being with horns, hooves, and a tail, that is supposed to exist and torture people. Does this sound like anyone who is able to challenge his creator? It is not reasonable for anyone to believe that Lucifer of Isaiah 14:12-19-21 could be a fallen angel with magical powers, and yet be cut down, cast down like an abominable branch, thrust through with a sword, and his children, descendants, destroyed. Who was this man and what had he done to bring such retribution upon himself? We need to study the whole chapter, instead of taking out just 2 verses, and developing around them the story of a mystical character with extraordinary powers. With this thought in mind, look at the start of Isaiah 14. For Yah will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they, the strangers, shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them, and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yah for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. The king of Babylon. Now note carefully the words of the following Verses. And it shall come to pass in the day that Yah shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Is 1:4-3-4. Then the story continues and pictures the ultimate breaking of the power of Babylon and its king, then, in a cynical description, pictures this fallen king in words of sarcastic symbolism, how he had fallen from his high estate, the heavens, as an authority, as a world ruler, and how he had been brought low. Those reading Daniel's wonderful interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, Daniel 2:37, will see what a proud position this king had held, for God had given him the greatest of all empires. Up to that time, he had been used as a scourge against Israel, for their sin before Yah, but retribution was now to come, for this great king was driven from his throne by 7 years of madness. This was an enormous come down for a great king who had caused all the nations to tremble. His fear was upon all nations, one after another they fell before him. No wonder the prophet said of him, Isaiah 14:16-17, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of the prisoners? These words do not fit the character of a supposed devil power. Here was a dictator, a king, one who had conquered Israel with a great slaughter by Yah's will. He had taken them to Babylon, he had conquered Syria, Egypt, Moab, Ammon, and Arabia, and many other lands. His pride and arrogance knew no bounds, and one day, in the palace of Babylon, he made the boastful speech, Is not this great Babylon, that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, and for the honor of my majesty? Dan 4:30. Even as the last words were upon his lips, a voice from heaven passed judgment upon him, and he was driven from his throne. Daniel 4:31. Do you not see in this impious speech the same outline as Isaiah speaks of? I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, heaven, I will be like the Most High, in authority. Isaiah 14:14. Israel to be blessed. But note again the words of Isaiah 14:1-4. Yah was to return and bless Israel and to bring back a remnant to favor. Again, even though they were about to go into captivity, a remnant from Israel did return from Babylon. Then note the words, It shall come to pass in the day that Yah shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The ancient city of Babylon did cease, and it truly is desolate to this day. But Israel, the people whom Nebuchadnezzar oppressed, are in their land throughout the globe. As we read, Yah will give thee rest from thy sorrow. Is 1:43. Conclusion. The Lucifer of Isaiah 14 was not a fallen celestial messenger, or angel. He was the king of Babylon. Isaiah 14 is basically a satire on the death and disgrace of a tyrant king of Babylon. It was most likely written against King Nebuchadnezzar, or possibly about the death of Sargon II, or of Sennacherib, the subsequent Assyrian kingdoms. This passage has no relationship with the passage in Luke 10:18 or 1 Timothy 3:6-7. There is no hidden meanings in this prophetic poem, and it is not addressed to, or talking about the devil, a devil, or Satan fallen from the grace of Yahweh. It is not about some heavenly celestial angelic war between messengers. Angels, how did you come to fall from the heavens? Daystar, son of dawn. Isaiah 14:12. Some Bibles, like the KJV, use the fabricated word, Lucifer, then add a capital L to make it appear to be a proper noun and a name. The literal Hebrew is, Shining One, the planet Venus, i.e. the morning star, or day star, as it is commonly called, was a symbol of Babylonian power. This power was closely identified with astrology, star worship. The word, Lucifer, is another one of those unfortunate uses of medieval Latin originating out of the KJV to become a name for Satan, which it is not, whose fall was supposed to be shadowed in this verse and the next. This is very similar to the misconceptions found through the misunderstandings and translations of the King of Tyre. This passage of Isaiah is a prophetic poem that is talking about the fall and subsequent disgrace and dishonor among the nations of this destroyed Babylonian king. This is not about the devil, or a Satan referred to as Lucifer. It is simply about the fall of an earthly king, who was only a man. See the documents. The king of Tyre, and the document, was their war in heaven.